Welcome back, Focus Learners. Usually the end of the school year means one thing: freedom. We think of sunshine, closing our textbooks for good, and just pure, sweet summer relief. But today, we're breaking down a completely different reality. We're looking at three true, genuinely chilling stories where that final bell ringing wasn't a signal for celebration. It was the terrifying start of an absolute nightmare.
Okay, let's dive right into this. Have you ever wondered what actually happens when the safety, the routine, and the structure of the school year just vanish? That's the central question we're exploring in today's explainer. We are plunging directly into a triptych of terror. These are three distinct, documented experiences where the transition into summer break brought people face to face with the unthinkable.
Story 1. The Tunnel, the secret under the school.
Okay, picture this. A strict, heavily aging private school that literally used to be a tuberculosis hospital. We're talking mandatory church services, stuffy uniforms, and just this looming sense of architectural dread. Naturally, an environment like that is basically a breeding ground for its own dark mythology. Specifically, urban legends. Those horrific stories circulated as though they were absolute fact. Well, for this school, the legend was that a massive basement tunnel was once used to secretly dispose of infected bodies. Enter Steve, a notorious school bully. Trying to prove how tough he was, Steve actually broke in, painted horror movie tropes like death is coming on the lockers, and claimed he heard pure evil whispering down in the basement. He got expelled for it, obviously, but his panicked claims sparked this wildly dangerous curiosity among the rest of the students.
And this brilliantly illustrates the exact timeline of what happened next. To debunk Steve's ghost stories, our protagonist, who is a self-proclaimed nerd, completely tired of everyone treating this bully like some brave hero, decided to break in on the very last day of school. The timeline is chillingly logical. At 10 p.m., he and his friends enter using a borrowed janitor's key. By 10:15, they're exploring this massive, dusty, totally unnerving basement filled with old religious statues. At 10:30, they spot it: a beach ball-sized hole in the wall with a tunnel stretching out behind it. And at 10:35, the crawl into the unknown begins.
So, of course, our protagonist loses a game of rock, paper, scissors. He's forced to crawl into this pitch-black, freezing tunnel first. He doesn't have a phone light, he's just got this cheap dollar store flashlight. And as he inches forward in the dirt, he hears it. A whooshing sound that slowly, terrifyingly turns into a distinct whisper. Can you even imagine the sensory deprivation of that moment? Just dust, the cold earth, and this whispering void right in front of you.
He shines his weak flashlight forward, and, well, he doesn't find a ghost. He finds something arguably much worse. Squatting just 15 feet away is a figure in the dark. It's a man. He's extremely skinny, completely shirtless, ribs showing, but the most terrifying detail? His eyes. They were half open, totally unsettling, and just completely vacant. Suddenly, the man lunges forward, making these guttural, unnatural noises. Our guy frantically scrambles backward out of the hole, and the boys barely escape as this feral man literally chases them all the way up the stairs. They didn't find an evil spirit down there. They found a very real, very unhinged person living in the dark under their school.
Story 2. The Gold Mask. The Summer Reunion. So, it's late May. College finals are finally over, and a group of friends heads back to their hometown for this massive, makeshift Halloween in May mansion party. The expectation here was pretty simple: a nostalgic, carefree summer reunion. Our subject, Kip, is just drinking by the pool, having a good time wearing a cheap plastic Jason mask. But the reality? That party was actually the staging ground for a highly targeted ambush by an unhinged stalker hiding just out of sight in the dark woods bordering the property. Now, what's really interesting about this is how terrifyingly methodical the whole thing was. Let's deconstruct the anatomy of this lure. Step 1. Kip spots a girl wearing a beautiful gold masquerade mask inside the house. They make eye contact, she gives him a wave. Step 2. A bit later, she retreats outside, moving right to the edge of the dark forest behind the pool, waving for him to follow. Step 3. Once he does, she drops that gold mask on the ground like a breadcrumb. Step 4. The ambush. It was a completely calculated, step-by-step psychological pull to isolate him from the safety of the crowd. So Kip is standing there, freezing. He had just jumped into the pool, so he's wearing nothing but a swimsuit and that plastic hockey mask. He's shivering, and honestly, he's about to give up and head back to the warmth of the loud party. But then, he hears this soft voice coming from the pitch-black trees. "Don't go back yet. Come and find me first." It is such a chilling thing to hear, and it somehow overrides all his logic, convincing him to step even further into the darkness where he can't even see the moon's reflection. He finally reaches her in the dark. She lifts her head, her dark hair parts, and Kip realizes exactly who she is. Which brings us to a massive, terrifying twist, perfectly represented by this number: 8 hours. That is exactly how far this girl drove. She wasn't a hometown friend. She was an unhinged ex-girlfriend from his college, 2 states away. He had literally only dated her for a few weeks before breaking it off because she was overly controlling. And she drove 8 hours straight just to orchestrate this bizarre attack in the woods. Let's look at the aftermath here. The second Kip recognizes her. Snap. A branch breaks. His ex lunges at him with a literal metal baseball bat, swinging it directly at his head. Kip narrowly dives to the ground, manages to dodge a second overhead swing, and sprints for his life back to the mansion. They lock the whole house down immediately, but the attacker vanished into the night without a trace. This traumatic event fundamentally changed Kip. It completely caused him to stop partying so hard and mature overnight. I mean, it forced him to realize the horrifying lengths someone might go to over a brief, weeks-long relationship.
Story 3. The Uninvited Guest. The Quiet Student.
Okay, to really understand the environment here, picture a substitute high school history teacher wrapping up a highly successful semester on the very last day of school. The vibe is heavily influenced by senioritis, that total decline in motivation among final year students. The atmosphere is incredibly relaxed, which makes her brilliant yet very quiet student Ben, standing completely silently by her desk, seem jarringly out of place. This timeline tracks the stalker's terrifying escalation over the next few days. Day 1. Ben lingers uncomfortably by her desk, mutters, "I'm sure I'll see you around," and leaves, but not before subtly moving her purse from a drawer to a chair. Day 4. Her husband finds muddy footprints near their backyard shed late at night. Day 5. The teacher wakes up to find their back door left slightly ajar. Day 6. The whole thing culminates in a terrifying late-night hallway encounter. These weren't harmless little coincidences, guys. They were the escalating anomalies of an active threat zeroing in on her home. So the absolutely crucial point here is this exact moment on day 6. Unable to sleep, the teacher sneaks out of bed to read. She walks down her dark hallway, senses a dark figure, and flips on the light in an absolute panic. Standing right there, directly outside her 7-year-old son's bedroom, is her student, Ben. He just smiles at her and utters this total nightmare-inducing phrase, "Hey, Miss Jones, nice house." And then, holding something hidden in his hand, he casually turns the knob and walks right into her little boy's bedroom. When you break down the anatomy of this home invasion, based on what the police and her husband later pieced together, the mechanics of it are just chilling. Step 1. During that lingering classroom moment, Ben moved her purse specifically to steal her ID and get her home address. Step 2. A few nights later, he actually scouted their backyard and hid in the shed. That explains the muddy footprints. Step 3. He entered the home through the back door he had tested and left unlocked earlier. Step 4. When the husband rushed into the child's room to confront him, Ben executed this desperate escape, literally dropping out of a 2-story window, landing on his feet, and disappearing into the night. And the conclusion to this whole ordeal is honestly deeply unsettling. There's just this massive lack of closure. When the police went to Ben's house, his parents provided a rock-solid alibi, claiming he had been asleep in his bed for hours. Without hard proof, law enforcement was completely powerless to act. Now, thankfully, and I mean thankfully, the teacher's son was sleeping over at a cousin's house that night, so the room Ben walked into was totally empty. But the psychological damage? That was permanent. A mother's intuition saved her family from a tragic encounter, for sure, but the sheer terror of that invasion forced them to put their home on the market. They just couldn't ever sleep peacefully in that house again. Conclusion: the real monsters. So what do these 3 end-of-year stories actually have in common? Well, they remind us that the real monsters, they aren't the ghosts of tuberculosis patients haunting some school basement. They are flesh and blood. It's the feral man hiding in the tunnel. It's the unhinged ex seeking revenge with a baseball bat. It's the quiet student standing silently in your hallway. The real horrors in this world are the unhinged people hiding in the dark. Which leaves us with one final provocative thought to close out today's explainer. Next time you lock your doors, turn off the lights, and feel perfectly safe inside, who might be watching you? Thank you so much for joining me. Keep learning, and I will see you in the next one.